So this time we're going to be taking a look at Ranma Half. And this one is a martial arts romantic comedy, which is kind of an interesting mixture if I say so myself. So with that said, let's get right into it and talk about the story. So it begins, there are two characters named Ranma and his father Gemma have came from China to travel all the way to Japan, so that one day Ranma would have to marry one of the Tendo sisters, so that the Anything Goes martial arts school will continue on for generations. So the three sisters happen to be Akane, Nabiki, and Kazumi, and they're all different ages and they also have different likes and dislikes and all that kind of good stuff. So after their father, Suen, ends up explaining to them that one of them has to marry Ranma, but as soon as Ranma shows up, it appears that apparently he is a chick, and also has pink hair. And they were all shocked by this because they all thought that Ranma was supposed to be a male. And eventually, after when Ranma is done training with Akane, Ranma ends up taking a bath, and what happens is that every time he goes into water, this is where he changes his shape. And obviously, Akane ends up walking in while he changed his shape, so she's very much flipping out and has no idea what the fuck is going on, but Ranma and his father end up explaining everything. So it turns out that Ranma and his father end up taking a trip to Gensenkyo, and they happen to be fighting each other in the springs, but these springs are actually cursed, so his father ended up falling in one where he turned into a panda, and then Ranma ended up falling in the other one where he turned into a girl. And as the legend goes, it appears that the springs are cursed because there was a girl and a panda bear that actually drowned within those springs. So whenever him and his father end up getting drenched in water, that's when they change their shape. So after explaining that whole conundrum, he has to go to the same school as everybody else. So when they walk kinda sorta together to school, a bunch of guys keep trying to fight Akane every single morning, because some crazy guy made up a rumor saying that if you can beat up Akane in martial arts, then you can marry her, which is just obviously ridiculous. So the crazy guy that made this up is named Kuno, and he happens to be the leader of the Kendo Club. And maybe putting the word crazy to describe him is probably putting it lightly. Maybe I should just say that he's just a complete fucking nut job. So not only is he obsessed with Akane, but eventually, when he actually sees Renma's female form, he ends up becoming obsessed with her. So he's always the reoccurring opponent, but of course there are many other people that he get to fight against. And that's the basic of what you need to know about Ranma Half. It's basically about Ranma and Akane just doing some everyday life stuff, and of course most of it being related to martial arts. And the fact that Ranma keeps on changing forms, which just totally mindfucks everybody. But one thing I will say right here is that even though this is a pretty typical martial arts thing, the one thing I will say is that I do like some of the ideas that it has in here. It is actually quite refreshing. And since this is supposed to be a comedy, well, yeah, I definitely would agree with that because this show does have some pretty good funny moments. But with that said, now let's start continuing on and talk about the animation. And I think it does look pretty good. The art style is nice, the character designs are pretty good for the most part, and the animation for the fight scenes are actually pretty great. I'd say that's probably where this one shines the most. But everything else is typically pretty good stuff, and I don't really have any much complaints about it, so I do find it to be quite good. And now, as for the show's music, it's not bad for the most part, but I think it could have been a lot better, considering that I do find that a lot of the songs here are kind of forgettable. But there's no big stinkers here, it's just the music in this one is just not my favorite thing ever. But at least the songs do fit the show very well, so that is one good thing. But otherwise, I can't really say much other than that it's just not really memorable music, but it at least does the job. So now, when it comes to the voice acting in this one, it's not really good, but I didn't absolutely hate it. In fact, there was only like 3 people here I actually recognized. So the first one I recognized was Richard Ian Cox, Paul Dobson, and Matt Hill. And as I said, the voice acting here is just not very good at all, but it's not the worst thing I ever heard. I mean, it's definitely much better than some of the other ones I've taken a look at before. Even though there were a couple things that were kind of funny to me, but that's just me liking cheesy voice acting, but for the most part, I really can't say anything much good about it. So if you don't want it to be incredibly cheesy, I'd just stick to the Japanese one. So now, if I were to rate this one, I think I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. So I found this one to be a pretty entertaining show. And it does have some really good characters with some pretty good development, and of course, it does have some pretty interesting ideas for a martial arts anime. And for the most part, the comedy was pretty good, but the one thing I would have to complain about is that there were some jokes that were in this one that, were kind of funny at first, but then they kind of overstayed their welcome and they just, stopped being funny. For an example, you would have scenes where it has Ranma walking by like a building, and then there'd be an open window where someone is dumping out a bunch of water, and it just ever so conveniently happens to hit him, and he just happens to change form. And yeah, the first time when that happened, it was kind of funny, but they kept on repeating that one a bit too much. But otherwise, I do find it to be a pretty fun, lighthearted show that is pretty fun to watch every now and then. And it's not a bad thing to have something like that. I mean, I can't always be watching serious shit all the damn time. But I'd say that the best part of this show would easily be the characters and the fight scenes, and you know what? That's more than well enough for me. Oh, but one last thing I will say before I end it here is that I have a feeling if this show was made in this day and age, you probably wouldn't hear the end of it from the Special Snowflake Committee. Well, it's okay, fuck them anyway, they complain about stupid shit all the time. But anyways, Ranma Half is a pretty entertaining show.